The Broadcasting, Electronic Media and Allied Workers Union, BEMAWU, wants an urgent meeting with the SABC as well as the Communications Minister in order to discuss the impasse around the financial crisis at the public broadcaster. Earlier here on Morning Live, we spoke to the President of BEMAWU, Hannes Dubison, about this and, of course, various other issues. And in response to this, we are joined on the line now by SABC Acting Chief Operations Officer Craig van Rooyen. Mr. van Rooyen, thanks so much for your time this morning. So firstly, let me just get your reflections on what happened in the Portfolio Committee yesterday.
Yes, so the Portfolio Committee meeting that we had yesterday, one of the matters that we spoke to was around whether or not the SABC has a turnaround strategy. I just want to confirm that there definitely is a turnaround strategy. And this turnaround strategy is a strategy that's approved by the SABC board. It's not a strategy that needs to be approved by Treasury. The only dealings that we have with Treasury is in terms of soliciting a guarantee that is required to go out to the banks with. And in order to solicit that guarantee, Treasury would normally require preconditions, and there were 11 preconditions that they required. So, I just want to categorically state that there's no need for a guarantee to be approved by Treasury. In fact, it's the role of the SABC management to develop the strategy. And to this end, the executive directors and group executives of the SABC have developed a robust strategic roadmap. And this roadmap has clearly defined action plans. And I just want to also state that the strategic roadmap was shared with the DOC for inputs. And normally in a process like this, the SABC management has arranged full-day workshop to take the leaders of the company, the group executives, and organized labor through the strategy where they then solicit inputs from them. And that was duly done. Sakina, in line with our governance processes, the strategic roadmap was presented to the SABC board for consideration and approval. I want to state that the board is the only body that can approve or reject the SABC strategy. And I also want to note that the board has approved the SABC roadmap as well as the strategic turnaround plans. And this was already done in August 2018 of last year. And subsequent to that, we've cascaded the strategy throughout the company to the GEs and general managers. And of course, as you know, there are certain pockets of the company through labor who are not contracted. So, they won't get the detail of the strategy if they're not contracted via performance plans. Sorry,
Mr. van
I'm in
Rooyen,
a car, so if you can't hear me, please tell me.
All right. I just want to get clarity on this turnaround strategy, given what emerged from the Portfolio Committee yesterday. So one of the things that was mentioned was that the Government Technical Advisory Centre had now taken over the development of a turnaround strategy because they were unhappy. Government was unhappy with what the SABC had presented. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. GTAC, which is the Government Technical Advisory Department, has been contacted by the DOC just to assist us in terms of bolstering our turnaround strategy and also assist with the administrative part of the guarantee. And the reason for that is because they have more experience in terms of working with other government departments who have applied for government guarantees. So we welcome that, and we are working with them because they have more experience with that in terms of the administrative environment. And we also welcome any areas of expertise to assist us where necessary. So that's where we stand with GTAC, Sakina.
Because the ministry stated that they were concerned about the SABC's turnaround strategy. They said that it wasn't credible, it wasn't workable, it didn't take all the necessary things that it needed to into consideration. So this is why we sit here and we wonder, you know, what is the status of the SABC's turnaround strategy, and has it been accepted by the department?
Yes. So the turnaround strategy is a turnaround strategy which is already being implemented, and it's a turnaround strategy which has brought the SABC to where it is at the moment. So out of that strategy, the SABC was able to realize 800 million rands worth of savings. The SABC was able to, out of that strategy, put down one of the best news digital platforms. In fact, was voted one of the best digital platforms. Given the current situation of the SABC, it's the same strategy which has also limited the losses in comparison to last year. So it's definitely a working strategy. So I just want to also add that the strategy is not needed, or there's no requirement of the strategy to be approved by the DOC. I find that to be incorrect. It's maybe areas of preconditions that's required for a guarantee from Treasury, which they may assist for us to work on. So I don't want the message to be misconstrued that there's no turnaround strategy. It's only the preconditions that we are working on, Sakina.
So would you say, Mr. van Rooyen, that this is the sticking point? Because the minister yesterday was quite adamant, and she stated that, you know, she was not happy. She didn't feel that the SABC's turnaround strategy was a solid one. And she went on to say that she would go as far as to quit her job, but she would not, as the shareholder, go asking for money when she was not happy, when she was not clear with what was presented to her.
Okay. Well, my view is that, you know, I heard something different. And what I heard from the minister yesterday is that it's not up to the ministry or that the ministry has funds available. The ministry has to approach Treasury, and I recall the minister saying that if she had the funds available, she would give those funds to the SABC immediately. I don't think that there's even a challenge in terms of Treasury giving the guarantee. The challenge we do sit with in South Africa, and we have to be direct about it, is that the banks, I believe, and in some of the meetings that they've spoken to us, don't find government guarantees from Treasury to be credible. So even though Treasury is committing to give them some sort of guarantee, the banks themselves don't find that as sufficient security to give the SABC funds. So that's the way I understood it, Sakina.
So what is the way forward? Because the SABC is in desperate need of this cash funding to come through. So what's going to happen now, and how soon is the SABC likely to see some cash coming in?
Yes. I wish I had an answer to that, Sakina. What I can tell you is that, again, from the ministry, I can see there's a commitment to work towards getting a guarantee. Right now, it's up to the 5 banks who collaboratively are reviewing a guarantee. And one of the conditions is that all 5 banks need to agree to collectively give this guarantee. I think it works to about 600 million per bank. And I believe that there's one bank who is challenged to give that money. And the condition is that all 5 of them need to come to an agreement. So I know that both the ministry, the SABC, GTAC, we're all working with them. to ensure that. But I can categorically state that there is definitely a turnaround strategy, and I don't think that there's a problem with the turnaround strategy, because that's not the communication that we as executives have been receiving. And nor is it the responsibility of Treasury to approve that turnaround strategy, nor the DOC.
So just in the interest of time, I want to move to matters raised with BEMAWU, one of the worker representative unions here at the SABC, and the issue of bloated staff at the organization. The minister again emphasizing that yesterday. And at this point, one wants to find out from the SABC whether the organization concurs with the minister's sentiments in this regard.
Yes, we do concur. And the reason why we concur is that we executives, I think we've gone through training in business management. And if you benchmark the SABC to any other media company in the world that is successful, one will find that the ratio for employment as a percentage of revenue sits about 20%. The SABC's expenditure on employment as a percentage of revenue sits at about 48%. So that is not good, and that's an indication that it is bloated. However, given that we sit in that situation, the SABC is reviewing opportunities to see how we can reduce those costs. And, we're looking at how we handle things like natural attrition. In this particular instance, we're talking about people who unfortunately have died, those who have resigned, and those who have been dismissed. How we replace those people from within the company. And that often requires a collaboration between labor, where labor has to be amenable, that people need to move within the company and they can't retain their substantive jobs. And that's one of the ways we're looking at reducing our labor costs by not employing additional people.
So, more pointedly, Mr. van Rooyen, will retrenchments, will Section 189 be back on the table?
I can't answer that, Sakina. At the moment, what I can tell you is that the board and the executive directors have not had a resolution which indicates that the Section 189A will come back on the table. But given the fact that we are trading recklessly as a company, and one of the tools that is expected of directors is to call on aspects of the Labor Relations Act, I cannot say that the Section 189A is definitely off the table or that it will not return back to the table. So the SABC sits in a dire situation, and currently, it's between a rock and a hard place. When companies find themselves in this situation, they normally call on a Section 189A. That I know is one of the things we're trying not to go towards as a company. But ultimately, the directors have to consider the sustainability of the company, and I cannot categorically state that it will not come back on the table, Sakina.
Mr. Craig van Rooyen, the Acting Chief Operations Officer of the SABC, thank you so much for your time this morning.